are a marathon wrench session. Marathon wrench. That's actually hard to say. Marathon wrench sesh. Marathon wrench sesh. I can't fucking say that.
Welcome to Saturday's Wrench. Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of the epic wrench session I got going on, trying to get this bike ready for the road. And today I'm hoping to get to the rear brake, maybe the linkage on the rear set, and then get to the chain and clutch side and get that installed. I'm not going to be able to install the chain today, mainly because I don't have the chain tool required to break the chain. I need to remove some of the links from the chain I bought, and I can't do it. You can't do that without a special rivet chain breaker tool, and those are quite expensive. They're up near $200, so I didn't want to splurge on that for a one-time use. I did try and borrow it off some friends, but they were just too far away and I wasn't able to get one. But I am going to explain some of the different types of chains that you're going to come across in your research. And this is research I personally done for my particular application, and I thought I'd share some of the information along to you guys, so it might help you when you go to put a chain on your bike. So basically what I'm doing with my build particularly, I went from a 530 chain to a 520 chain. All that really means is that the width of the chain is slightly thinner than a 530 chain that was stock on the original CB350. So when you exchange the chain, you also have to exchange the sprockets. So the sprockets and the chain, they go together. If you have a 520 chain, you can't run 530 sprockets because the sprockets are going to be too thick for the chain. So when you do a conversion, you need to convert the front sprocket, the drive sprocket, and the rear sprocket as well. So you're asking yourself, why would you do this? Why would you want a thinner chain? Well, basically it shaves off maybe 10 pounds of weight. When you add up the two sprockets and the chain, the amount of metal that you remove from those two chains by having a thinner chain and thinner sprockets, it actually reduces quite a bit of weight. And that's unsprung weight. So that means weight that's below the springs on the suspension of the bike. In racing terms, that's something that basically you want to take care of the most. Is unsprung weight is going to really, if you reduce your unsprung weight, you're going to really get the bike going a lot faster. Not that I'm racing or anything, but it's just nice to have this build be a little more race inspired, and why not shave some weight in a place that it's really easy to. So that's the main reason why you might want to convert to a 520 chain, just to reduce some of the weight and reduce the overall weight of the bike, and that's just going to help for overall speed and maybe handleability and all that sort of stuff. So in your travels, you're going to find a lot of different types of chains. As you can see here, I have 2 different types of chains I wanted to show you guys. On my left here, your right, you'll see this is a heavy duty chain. And then on my right, your left, you'll see that this is an X-ring chain. So what are the basic differences between a sealed chain and an unsealed chain? You might hear of an O-ring chain or an X-ring chain, and you might hear of a heavy duty chain or an unsealed chain. So basically this is a sealed chain, and there's 2 types of sealed chains. There's an O-ring chain and an X-ring chain. The O-ring chains came about because what they do is, in between these linkages, you can see from the picture maybe, you see that? There's an O-ring in between this linkage plate right here. And what that is doing, what the main purpose of that is to keep out the dust and dirt that's going to get into the moving part of the chain and help it to not wear as long. So this is going to last longer than an unsealed heavy duty chain. So the old school chains, they didn't have this. So basically they came up with this idea just to make the chains last longer and to seal up the chain. So they come pre-lubed and then they seal them up, and basically no dirt is getting into that. So the maintenance on this chain is a lot less than a heavy duty chain basically, or an unsealed chain. Now what the difference is between an O-ring and an X-ring chain is that an O-ring is just like what it says, and an X-ring is like an X type of ring. So basically a seal is actually better than an O-ring. It will actually last a little longer than an O-ring. Now, a lot of guys say that you lose a little bit of power with these chains. And why is that? Because they have more flex. Basically, I guess you could say that when tension comes on and pulls the chain, the O-rings act kind of like a cushion, cushioning the tension and not allowing as much power to transfer through the chain. I've actually looked this up a lot, and a lot of guys have done a lot of research on this, and there is a slight difference in torque or power loss with these sealed chains. Will you notice it? No way. There's no way any human is going to notice a 1% power, like horsepower power loss. If you say that you can feel that, wow, you have superhuman feels. Way to go. No human could feel that power loss. So they say that an O-ring chain has more power loss than an X-ring chain. You know what? These racers and stuff on these bikes, they do not use these sealed chains because of that reason. Hey, if you're on a racetrack and you're trying to shave off tens of thousands of a second, then use a heavy-duty chain. You know what I mean? For me, I like these. I chose an X-ring chain because it lasts like 4 times as long as a heavy-duty chain. The maintenance is way less. You don't have to clean it as much. Dirt and stuff won't get into the chain. In my personal opinion and what I've read online, there is no way that you're going to be able to feel that power loss. So that's an so this is an X-ring chain. That's a sealed chain. So again, it just has little rubber sealants in between the linkages, not allowing dirt and dust to get into the chain. Basically, that's the main draw with these guys, and they last a lot longer, and basically, again, but they're way more expensive. So this might be 150% price increase over a heavy-duty chain, but it's going to last you maybe 3 or 4 times longer. So if you're buying a $100 chain every 6 months and you only have to buy a $150 chain every 2 years, it's a no-brainer to me. But that's just my personal opinion. You're going to have your opinion, and that's just the research that I read up, and you know, that's just the conclusion that I personally came up with. Similarly, again, like I said, I have a heavy-duty chain here. This is an unsealed chain, so in between the linkages, there are no O-rings or X-rings or no rubber, nothing like that. So this is susceptible to dirt getting in between the linkages. So think about that. When dirt gets in there and then the chain's rubbing and rubbing, it's going to wear a lot quicker, right? Unless you clean it all the time, and that's the thing with these chains. They require a lot of maintenance. So you just got to think, like, do I want to do a lot of maintenance on my chain? Every time it rains, anytime you go down a dirt road or a dusty road, or you go for a ride in the country, you're going to have to come home, clean the chain, lube it up again. You know, cleaning a chain might take you 10, 20 minutes, but you're going to have to do it pretty much every time you go for a nice long ride. So that's just something you're going to have to think about. And again, they say no power loss on these chains. So again, unless you're on a racetrack, I personally don't think you would feel it at all. And if you can, good for you, because you have superhuman feels. So in conclusion, again, heavy duty chain, unsealed, then your X-ring chain, a little bit better than an O-ring chain. It just seals better, and a little better technology than an O-ring. Lasts very long, hardly any maintenance required, and very power loss, but arguably to the point of you know what, I'd love to get this bike when it's all finished on a dyno and put each chain on and see exactly, you know, if any power loss. And that's something I actually plan to do. So stay tuned for that. That might be a little bit down the road, but hey, who knows, right? But I will be fitting this one on for sure for now, and then we'll see how it goes. But again, I do not have the chain breaker tool, so we can't put it on the bike. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and start working on the rear brake, the linkage rod for the rear sets, and get all that stuff in place. Let's get over to the bike and get back to work. Alright guys, we're just on the side of the bike here, and you can see my rear set bracket. So this is the old school speed rear sets. I do like this rear set. They're nicely machined, and the kickstart will clear this arm, which is great. Even the peg in place and everything. I'll show you guys that in a sec, but it completely does clear, as you can see there. The pedal here, the brake pedal here, has room. And if you need to use this as reference, the instructions that come with this, these rear sets are old school. It's very it's kind of trying to be descriptive, but doesn't really do a good job. And now I just need to get this little thing on the end here. But first, this pedal goes on, so you can see this section goes on here. And what I want to do, and then this screws onto the end of that. But what I want to do is add some blue Loctite here, and you definitely want to use blue Loctite. I've had a similar set of rear sets on my other motorcycle, and I've had the pedal come off on me at a stoplight. Thank God I was at a stoplight, but you will quickly panic when you're unable to brake or switch gears in an emergency situation. It can get quite scary. So my advice, use Loctite on these screws, everything, just to make sure that none of this stuff comes apart on you when you're riding. So I got my dust seal in place here. Now I just have to put this stop arm here, the brake stop arm. I'm going to attach my brake arm. I've already attached it on this end. Now I just have to go under the bike and attach it under here. And it's a little tricky to get the camera under there, so I'm not going to do that. But basically, you have this little piece here that sits on the right side of the motorcycle. And then this bolt, this is a special little bolt here. And so they can be hard to find, but you can see how that works. It has like a little dowel pin, and then it goes into a screw section with a hole in it that's for a cotter pin. So that also goes in from the from the right side of the bike, and then so that goes through there. Like that'll go through the arm, and then there's a washer and a bolt that goes onto that, and a cotter pin that'll keep that in place. So there was a few missing parts from the rear sets that I didn't put on. I didn't put on this stopper here, so I just made sure to put that little piece here, so that prevents the arm pedal here from getting up too much. Because I guess once you connect the linkage rod to the rear brake here, it's going to want to pull it back. So that just stops that from happening. So that was one thing I forgot to put on. But I will link to a video in the description below, so make sure you check that out, because they go through these instructions in a video on oldschoolspeed.com. So I don't know why they don't put it at the beginning. It says right here in their instructions, they're half-ass written, printed out instructions, so old school. They need some pictures, but the video helps. Actually, it helped me a lot. So I went through and watched it, and I suggest watching it if you have these rear sets or you're thinking about buying these rear sets. Go check out the video in the link below before you purchase them, just to make sure that they're going to be for you. Just make sure you have your arm installed before you put the wheel on, or you're going to have to take the whole wheel off like I just had to do. While you have the wheel on, this arm's a lot easier to get under the bike. Unless you have a lift, this thing is a bitch to get on here. So I got that on. The brake arm stopper is all good, it's in place. The cotter pin I bought, I did look at the fiche and I got the part, but it's way too thick to fit in the little hole. So for now, I just Loctited the crap out of this and torqued it up over here. So that's nice and snug. The rubber is in the behind here. The washer is on the front of the arm here, and my brake arm is my lever here is at about 1 o'clock position, and I'm ready to link up these arms. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add the linkages and get this going. And I won't spend too much time on the video, but it's a good reference for you if you want to install these rear sets into your bike. So the way this goes on is that you have these two machined pieces here like that. You could see that machine piece. So that will fit inside of the brake lever. See that there? So these two machined little washers fit on either side, and they sandwich this little ball joint mechanism. and then you have a nylon lock washer, and that just sits on the inside. So what I'm trying to do here is just set up this brake lever, the linkage arm. So this is going to set this side up pretty well, and I think we're going to move on from here. So moving on to the front controls here, guys, you can see that I have everything pretty much set up, and I was able to actually sit on the bike now that I have the rear sets on. So I was able to get my kind of like my feet in position here, and so I was able to get a good comfortable you know, arm position here. So I came up with this position, and it was pretty tricky getting all this aligned. There's lots of factors in play here. So you have the 2 bolts here, you have the 2 bolts on this the master cylinder brake here, and then you have to set up the reservoir so that it's nice and level. And so this little piece of metal holding that on is nice and flexy, so you're able to kind of move it and bend this around. And even underneath the screws and stuff here, you're able to turn it and do all sorts of stuff to get everything in a position. And this is all adjustable, so there's quite a lot of variables when setting this up. So a lot to kind of keep in mind. But now I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good position. So this is going to come in handy for when I go to wire the bike up in the next episode, and I'll be able to drill a hole underneath here. Basically, my next step, I think it's going to wrap this video up after I do this, but I think I'm going to just go ahead with the brake reservoir, fill that up, and bleed the brake line here, and get some nice pressure on the front brake. And you saw me tighten these banjo bolts before, 28 foot-pounds on each one. And now I'll be able to put in the brake fluid here. So I'm just going to go ahead and take off the lid of this little diaphragm here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch the camera around onto the brake caliper side down there, and you'll see the brakes getting bled, the brake line getting bled through. So the idea is not to allow any air in the line, so you want to get all the bubbles out. And what I purchased down by the brake is a speed bleeder, and I'll show you how that works. Now you can see here I have this little bleeder here. It's called a speed bleeder. It's pretty sweet. It allows you to bleed the brakes without having to loosen and tighten the bolt here. So I can just loosen it and just keep pressing, and what it does is it only allows fluid to move in one direction, outwards. And then there's a little valve inside that stops it from sucking air back in. So that's really cool. So this is a really neat little thing. So you can see I have a little tube hanging off the side here. It's getting a little twisted. I'm going to try and keep it as straight as possible. And then what I've done at the top is that I just poured some brake fluid in the reservoir up here. And I'll just keep filling it up until it runs its way all the way through the line, and then I don't see any air bubbles. So what I'm going to do is just press. I'm going to squeeze on the master cylinder here until I'm getting I'm going to let it run through until I'm not getting any air bubbles. Now I can see that it's just plain liquid coming out. So I'm going to give it one more squeeze and then tighten it off. And again, you want to make sure you don't run out of fluid at the top of the reservoir here. Now that I'm feeling good pressure, I can put the brake reservoir back together on the top here. So now that I tightened that bleeder valve, because it doesn't allow air back into the system, I'm pumping brake fluid through. Now you can see my brakes are working really well here, and that's pretty cool. I have a front brake, guys. Phew! Cool. So this is good. Well, at the end of day 2, she's looking pretty good, man. I'm pretty impressed. I like the rear sets. I took off the linkage here because I realized that I still need to adjust the rear wheel spacing here when I get the chain installed. So that's all going to be adjusted when that's finished. So what did we get done today? A whole bunch in this episode. I fixed the seal. The front fork had a big leak. I had to take the whole fork apart and replace that seal, fix the inner diameter of that fork boot. We got that all sorted out. Put that back on. Got the fender chopped up. I showed you guys the process of that. Explained the process, how I went through with that. That's looking pretty cool. Got that fitted on the bike. Finished the brakes. I got the brake arm adjusted perfectly. I showed you guys how to adjust the arm of the brake to get it to perfect distance. And then, so we got the brake on, and we got the brake line on. Finally, got the brake line on. I have brakes. We got brake fluid in the master cylinder here. In the reservoir, it's all good. We got a nice brake here. Feels really nice. At the rear end of the bike, I showed you guys the new shocks. Those are looking really sweet. I'm really impressed with those. And man, this bike looks tiny compared to me, doesn't it? It's only because there's no seat and no tank. It'll look a little bigger when that stuff's on, but for now I have a seat here made, but I'm going to wait to show you guys that until I have the tank and everything. It's a pretty cool seat, but I personally want to design my own seat. I got it built, but I like it, but what I want to do, I'm going to do this later on, but what I want to do is build a little foam, do that kind of fiberglass little tail section here. And I mocked up some designs and I think it looks really neat. So let me see how she fits. Looking pretty good. Feels amazing to sit on this thing finally after so long. The seat's a little uncomfortable. But man, she looks really cool. I got a pretty good riding position, and I think we're almost getting there, guys. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start on the electrical tomorrow, and this is gonna end this episode. But thanks for tuning in, guys, and thanks for all your support. And I hope you're enjoying the pictures on Instagram and everything. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, check out Saturday's Ranch on Instagram. I post up-to-date pictures on everything I'm doing, and lots more pictures there. A little more in-depth, closer detail pictures. If you're into Instagram, check that out. There's a link in the description for my Instagram and Facebook account. I post all the photos there. You could also check me out on Honda Twins or Do the Ton. I have a build thread on both of those sites. So things are looking pretty cool. I cannot wait to get this thing wired up, and that's going to be in the next episode, guys. So stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to get this bike wired up. It's going to be sweet. Please like and share the videos, and thanks again for all your support. Don't forget, get out there, get those projects done. If I can do this, anybody can do this. So get out there, finish those projects up, wrench it up.